Hey there, welcome back. Thanks for joining me again as we get started with our second topic, which is an overview of compute services. In this lesson, we're going to talk about what EC2 is, what components it has, the various purchasing options Amazon offers, and then in the end of the lesson, we're going to talk about the benefits and the use cases of EC2 instance. Let's go ahead and get started. So, what is an EC2? It is a basic virtual computer. Everything that is connected to it is virtual in nature. For example, the memory, CPU, hard disk, network adapter, everything is virtual. The virtual machine is also scalable. So remember that scalable means that we can add additional resources to adapt to the overall capacity requirements that we have. Using EC2 eliminates your need to invest in the hardware upfront so you can deploy and develop applications faster. Amazon EC2 enables you to scale up or down to handle changes in requirements or spikes in popularity, reducing your need to forecast the traffic. So think about something like having an e-commerce website where you're selling your products during a holiday season. So during a Christmas or a Black Friday, you might have a larger requirement to handle that traffic. Well, Amazon EC2 allows you to add those additional resources for as long as you need them. Now, once the Christmas season is over, then you can get rid of some of those servers. That means you pay only during the peak hours, and during the non-peak hours, you pay minimum amount based on the number of servers you're using. That's really one of the beauties of the cloud, which is you do not have to purchase all that hardware with all that upfront cost just to have it sit during your off-peak seasons. Let's dissect the components of EC2 and understand what each component means. So, the operating system is an equivalent of AMI. We know that AMI is an Amazon Machine Image. Now, let's relate this to an operating system. It could be Windows or Linux operating systems. So AMI is nothing but a package. It is a package that is pre-configured and you can deploy that operating system to your EC2 instance. Once you deploy your instance, it has that operating system on it, either Linux or Windows. Then there is CPU. In AWS, we call this as instance type. So the instance type is the CPU, which is the processing power, the brain that thinks and processes the data, and also the data that the applications are using. And then you have the EBS. EBS stands for Elastic Block Storage. So basically, think of it like your C drives and D drives on your Windows machines. EBS would be equivalent of that C drive and D drive on your EC2 instance. So you have an EBS volume where your operating system is installed, and then you can have additional EBS volumes as well where your actual data is kept. And then your network adapter is what we're going to relate to an IP address. So that's basically something that gives you internet access and lets you communicate with other EC2 instances as well. Now, with that network adapter having an IP address, it can communicate with other applications or databases well within your VPC. So an EC2 instance does have a network adapter. And then we have that security, right? The firewall. Well, at the EC2 instance level, it's called as a security group. Now, when we think about operating systems like Windows, Windows has a Windows firewall and Linux has IP table. So basically, the firewall is something that guards or protects your computer from things like malware, viruses, or anything that is malicious in nature. A firewall is an additional layer to help protect against unauthorized access into your computer. So on your EC2 instance, we got the RAM, which is the random access memory. And remember that the data goes into your RAM first. And from your RAM, it is passed off to your EC2 instance for processing purposes. Once it is processed by your EC2 instance, it then stores on the EBS storage as a final result. So you may be thinking, how much do we pay for one EC2 instance in AWS? The answer to it depends on various scenarios. Let's understand the various purchasing options for an EC2 instance, okay? So the answer to this would be a long one. So there are three basic types of purchasing options that you need to be familiar with. The first is on demand. The on demand purchasing option allows you to purchase an instance type and provision it whenever you want. You can terminate it at any time. So if your business manager comes up and says, "Hey, can you create a virtual machine for me and install this application?" Well, you will go ahead and spin up that new EC2 instance. And then a week later, business changes its mind and asks you to delete that EC2 instance. Now, because the business does not need any more, you can go ahead and shut it down and terminate it. How much did you pay? Well, you paid for only the duration for which the virtual machine is up and running and on. So once the virtual machine or the EC2 instance is terminated, you no longer have to pay for it. This means you pay it only for the duration the virtual machine has been up and running. Now, this is the most expensive option, but it gives you the flexibility in terms of when you want to provision it, how you want to use it, and when you want to terminate it. You are charged for that instance while it is running, and it is billed by the hour. You can provision and terminate the on demand instance at any time. That's what on demand means. Now let's take a look at the second option, which is a reserved instance. A reserved instance allows you to purchase an instance for a longer period of time. So you got two options. You can select between 1 year and 3 year and you get a significant discount. But you are required and you're responsible for the cost of that instance for that entire period. It doesn't matter whether your instance is on or off. You're going to pay for that instance for a period of 1 or 3 years. So when you choose this option of reserved instances, you can choose to pay the entire money upfront or pay partial upfront or not pay upfront at all. But the bottom line is that you are responsible for the entire price of that instance for the time period, regardless of how often you use it. And then finally, there are spot instances. Spot instances are a way for you to bid on an instance type, and then you only pay and use that instance based on when the price is equal or below your bidding price. Let's understand this with an example. You know about how stock market works, right? In the stock market, you bid, but typically you bid more than the actual value. So if the stock value is running at 2, you may bid at 2.1 or 2.05. The higher you bid, the better your chances of winning are. Spot instances work the opposite. You bid a price and you're going to say that I don't want to pay a dime more than this price. And as long as the price is equal to this or below the price, you will have access to that instance, right? So it gives you a substantial discount. You can determine what you want to pay for that EC2 instance. Now, when you bid for it, and if Amazon has space and capacity available in that region, in that availability zone, you get that EC2 instance. So basically, it's based on supply and demand. Anything that is unused is basically sold out through bidding. So when your bid is accepted, meaning your price is equal to or below your bidding price, then the instance is provisioned for you and that instance will stay online until the price is higher than your bid price. So if somebody else bids more than you, what's going to happen? Well, your instance will automatically terminate. So when we think about these three instance types, the best way is to remember that the spot instance is good for bidding, okay? Think about auction. So if you're looking for an instance for short periods of time, and it doesn't matter whether the machine is up and running and somebody just terminates it, it doesn't matter for the application, then spot instance is what you're looking at. If you have an instance where you know you're going to need that for a long period, like 1 year or 3 years, then you'll think of reserved instances. Of course, you will be saving money if you go for reserved instances because you are now committing to Amazon for a long period of time. So you got two options there, 1 year or 3 years. And that's when reserved instances makes the most sense. With on-demand instances, you want that flexibility to spin up when you want Keep it in your subscription as long as you want and terminate when you want. That's what on-demand instances are for. Now, that being said, let's go ahead and talk about how you will be charged. So we spoke about the free tier in the earlier lesson, right? So we know that there are certain free services in EC2. Now, all of that depends on what type of instance you are using and how long are you using those instances. But keep in mind that all instance types are not available for free tier. You cannot just provision an M3 large instance which has like 8 gigs of memory and 4 CPUs and expect it to be free. No, that's not going to happen. So not everything is for free in free tier. So when you're starting to provision resources, you need to think carefully in advance as to how the billing is affected, how you will be charged for that EC2 instance. So keep in mind that you ensure the right sizing of the compute. Do not choose high compute for applications that demand lots of storage and less compute. Storage also comes in different flavors here in AWS, yeah? So you can choose high IOPS for applications that need higher disk performance. But then if you're choosing a disk with high IOPS, your bills will also increase. IOPS stands for input output operations per second, and that is basically how fast the storage is going to perform, how fast it's going to be processing that data. The pricing can also change because of the kind of operating system you're using. Remember that you can choose between Linux and Windows. Now, Linux being open source, you don't pay anything to anybody as far as using the operating system is concerned. And Microsoft is a proprietary operating system, so a cut of what you pay goes to Microsoft as well. So keep in mind that you choose the right operating system when provisioning an EC2 instance. Now, apart from CPU, the disk, the operating system, you're also charged for the data transfer. How much data are you moving in and out of that EC2 instance? The pricing of the EC2 instance will also get affected depending on the region where your EC2 instance is hosted. So, an EC2 instance hosted in North Virginia will not cost you the same as the EC2 instance hosted in Australia, just for an example. Now, let's go ahead and take a look at the benefits and the use cases of EC2 instance. Well, there are typically several use cases where you want to use an EC2 instance. An EC2 instance holds true in all scenarios where you want to use a virtual machine. It could be for hosting a web application or to host your website. Just to summarize, EC2 instances are used to handle different kinds of application workloads. You can create the kind of EC2 instance you want with your operating system and then pack it up with the power you want to give it to the EC2 instance. These EC2 instances are extremely reliable and they are built on secure infrastructure. They are inexpensive, they are pretty easy to use, and you can deploy an EC2 instance typically within a couple of minutes. And that's going to be an overview of EC2 compute services. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next lesson.